So today we have a microscope from ELIKLIV. This is a 4K microscope. It's absolutely geared toward just electronics guys or repair guys. It comes with a soldering mat, and this is our 10.1 inch EM4K microscope. Has a 2000 milliamp hour cell, so it is battery powered. Has 64 gigabyte micro USB card. It also has USB-C, HDMI Mini Out, here's our HDMI Mini cable, our remote, our USB-C cable, our 5-volt adapter. Is it a 2 amp? No, it's actually a 3 amp. A lens cloth, the boom arm for our stand, the little cover or plate bezel, the little tool holder that clips on, C-clamp, our pole, our ring light, our bracket, and our user's manual. Looks really nice. We'll look at the specs in just a minute. So this is some of the specs for this microscope if you're interested. I can't wait to see the resolution on this 4K scope. It's going to be awesome. So let's quickly get this put together. We're going to remove the screw that's already in our pole. This plastic plate or bezel goes in between. I'm going to leave that out on purpose on mine. It goes like so. I'll show a picture here on the bottom right or so showing that it goes in between. I just like more room around the edge of my bench, so I'm going to leave it off and just go for a cleaner all metal look. I just like to keep my remote and tools right close to it, and having to go around that round plastic piece just actually takes up more room on my workbench. So, but it's there for you to use if you would like to do so. Just going to get the clamp put on the pole here. It does come with the tools needed. It's the larger hex key for this bolt. We want this to be very, very tight and not move once we clamp it to the bench. We also have to tighten up these screws. This is made where you can adjust it to fit a broad range of thickness bench material or surface material you're mounting it to. This is going to work just fine for mine. I'm going to make sure my drawer pulls out that I have down here. So it's going to have to go like so. We'll get this good and tight. And that's really solid, impressively solid to be a quick install really. Now we'll take our boom arm. By the way, it does have the covers here that our wires can go through. That's pretty cool. It also has the end for our microscope bracket to slide on like so. The nut will go above, but I might just thread it on there temporarily to see how it looks as far as height. And we'll just slide it on like so. And there we go. So that's going to be pretty close right there. Put a little tool holder clip on here like so. It holds our tools, or at least the Allen wrenches or hex keys. And here's our microscope. Going to go ahead and pull off our protective film. And by the way, I'll show a detail here of screwing the bracket on to the boom arm, and the nut actually goes on top. You may see some places in video that I didn't do that correctly, but I did go back and do that properly for permanent mount and put the nut on like so, and that's a lot better. The silver bracket itself still has some movement in it, but the boom is pretty solid. Slide our microscope in, and I'll show some detail here on where this is positioned, and the red ring is below that if you can see it. I got it snug, and I'll tighten it up after I get the angle correct. Going to go ahead and get my USB-C cable routed through, and these little shrouds will pop off, but my little small USB-C just feeds right through. That moves really well. Let's go ahead and plug up our USB-C. Give it just a little bit more slack here. There we go. So this is for power as well as connecting to the computer. for file transfer as well as recording to the PC. Turn this a little bit before we lock it down. We'll lock it down like so. We do notice that one of the knuckles on our boom arm is a little bit loose, so no problem. Let's pop the plastic covers off. We'll get the tools that come with it right here, the hex key and the open end wrench, and we just want to tighten this up. Not so tight that we can't move it, but snug enough where it'll stay. And it does take a effort to move it, so maybe a little bit more, and there we go. We'll put back on the little plastic caps, and there we go. I think that's going to move just fine. That's going to be just fine. Awesome. We power it on. We do hear the autofocus already moving. Hopefully you can hear that on video. Let's get something to put under here. Yep, here's the board. This is with no light, but just ambient light from my workbench. I'm probably going to put a board with smaller, more dense components on here. That's probably a better choice for this video to see the fine details. If we turn on the integrated LED light ring, we see that it already helps. Even from this distance, that does help a lot. Autofocus, awesome. That works really, really well. Just playing around here with the plus and minus. That moves really, really smoothly. Back to auto and bam. That's a good looking image. I like it. Let's go ahead and just look around this board a little bit. We'll record and show the actual record footage up on the screen. I'm going to upload this in 4K, so hopefully you can see the true resolution like I'm seeing it. Just take a few moments here with meter leads going around, just seeing what the video looks like as we're troubleshooting. Looks really good. The depth looks good. Very clear image, corner to corner, and the resolution on these small components is outstanding. Tilting the board way more than we should be here just to show, even with exaggerated angles, it truly is a really good image. We can easily tell that this cap's swollen here on the bottom. Definitely spot a bad and missing components right away. Let's go ahead and put on our ring light to see if that's any better. For a little while I try to keep it at the red line, but it's got to go just a little bit above it. I may have it just a little bit too high right here as it impedes the minus button just a little bit. I can still get to it, but we definitely want to keep our little thumb screws away from the buttons on the front, and I wanted to have my dial accessible, so I chose to turn mine like so. I'm going to go ahead and remove these plastic shrouds and run the wire through for the ring light. That's all nice and neat, and they move very well together. So now with our ring light, that should give us a lot better image and a lot less shadows. So here we go, we're recorded now, and this is what the true footage looks like. And this is with both the integrated light as well as the externally mounted ring light. The image is definitely brighter. I can see some details better. We do have some glare depending on the angle that we have the board. We bring it up closer and hit focus. Back away. Yep, there we go. I am happy with how well the autofocus works. Just look at the back side of the board. You can see the surface scratches trying to remove all the silicone potting that was on this board. And this is one of those chips that is really hard to see the part number. Let's see if we can get it on video here, different angles. I think we can see it from this angle. Yep, we can definitely make that out. Let me get a little bit closer and see if it shows up on video for you. Yeah, you can see that just fine. Now I have the microscope USB cable plugged into my computer, and as you can see here, we are in USB MSDC or mass storage device mode. So here we can transfer the files from the SD card if you would like. It tells us on the screen here to press OK to go to UVC or the USB video mode to use as a PC camera. So mine is Windows 11 and my camera is already a shortcut. You may have to search for yours if you haven't used it. But there we go, both displays up. The lag is very minimal. Let's put a board up here. You can see the lag as I move it around. I'm going to cut the ring light on to give us some more light, and I'm going to take a probe and just move it back and forth. Not bad. Now let's hook up our HDMI to our HDMI Mini on the microscope. I'm going to try to do this with one hand gently, and there we go. And you can go straight out to a monitor. Now here I always use my XR1 Pro. This is a capture device. I'm going into this and then out to the monitor. So here I'm just using OBS for example, and we're up just like so. I did have to go into mine and flip the image because I had it flipped for another camera that I use above my workbench. After that, it's just going to full screen out to the monitor, and there we go. And I can go back and record this. So I'll close this out. I'm going to go ahead and start recording, and then we'll have some of this footage from the HDMI out recorded from my XR1 Pro capture device. So I was viewing this on my 28-inch monitor at the time. And here we go. Here's the footage from the HDMI out to my XR1 Pro capture device. Just flip it over. I'm going to do a preset of P2 right here, and then go to P1, preset 1. It's whatever the factory had it set at. Go back to P2, and there we go. So the presets can be handy. I'm just going to throw the owner's manual to be a different focus plane here. So as we change our Z height, we just hit focus. I'm going to store this as preset 1. You see P1 turn green at the top, means it's set. Go back to P2, remove our manual, and yep, we're back focused on the board. Back to the manual, P1, awesome. So that can help a lot on multiple height items. You don't want to go back and forth with autofocus. So that's handy to have that feature. But you know, autofocus works well, and I usually leave it in manual focus. That's just hitting AF or the focus button as needed. So we can also hold down the autofocus for a few seconds like a long press, and we'll stay in autofocus, and it's continuous. And really, even though my board does have a lot of different heights on it, the autofocus did work very well. In some of my testing, just leaving it in auto, for example, bringing it up high, and that's great. Back down low, that's great. So the autofocus did work very well. Let's take a few minutes to look at the menu. We press menu, we got exit, we go over to playback. We can just play back our media from my SD card. Go over to image. We got two different pages of image settings. We got AE, image brightness, white balance, autofocus, autofocus window, autofocus point, effect, and WDR. On page 2 we have contrast, saturation, sharpness, mirror, flip, and frequency. We can return back and go to our settings. We can also use our remote to go in the menu and move it around. We just have to have it pointed directly at the microscope. our settings a thing like shortcut. Do we want the OK button to be for photo, video, or split freeze? I have it on video. Our photo resolution, video resolution, LCD brightness, which I have turned up a little bit more than halfway, 70%, just to make sure it shows up good on camera for us. Auto off, language, date and time, back to default if you want to set the microscope back to factory default, format for the SD card, and it shows our version. And then we have our marking. So this, if you want to have a cursor, so on the cross cursor we can have it off, we can have it on ruler, we can have it on a little center crosshair. So this is our ruler, and I will spend just a minute to talk about the ruler, because obviously it's no way it can truly measure since you can have your board at different heights. But this is for a reference, so you can't look at this like a measuring tool, but simply as a reference tool. I know the crosshair is not really showing up good on video, but in this case I've taken the pin pitch of this connector and I verified that it is a 2.0. It is a 2mm pin pitch. And what I can do, for example, if I want to take this same 7-pin connector, I can take the same pin pitch, which is roughly about 5 in between. So 2mm is 5 in this reference on this plane, and you can see how fine the grids are if I zoom in here. But we can look at other connectors, for example, and make sure they are the same pitch, which I knew these were, but still, this is just an example. So here's a 2-pin, here's a 6-pin, and they're all the JST 2.0 connectors. We can also take that reference and see what size SMD device we have. As you can see, there's the different component sizes. So pin pitch and component size is just one example, but it could be handy as long as you know that this is what it is. It's not a measuring tool, it's just for reference and comparison only. So we'll have to go in, we can cut this off, call it the ruler off, and we can go to center. I don't even think it shows up well on camera, but there's a little small fine crosshair right in the middle. If you needed to center up your image on the screen, let's go ahead and let's cut the center marker off. And we also have line index. And line indexes can be handy, but I will say it's very frustrating to use because you have to cut each line on individually if you want a line show on or off. So you pick 1 through 8 and you turn it green so it's selected. Then you have to go down to line show and then line show off or on. So we're going to go to on. That horizontal line shows up and you see it's selected line width 1 and its color is yellow. One of the frustrating things about the lines is if you want to change the position. So here I have a different line selected just to show you I'm trying to change the position of that line. It is literally a pixel or line width at the time. So you try to hold down the button and it doesn't accelerate, it doesn't move. If you try to do it with the remote, it's the same way, but I'm trying to show you on camera, but you have to point it directly towards the microscope and it's like it don't pick up some of the clicks. And I tried to even hold that down and it doesn't work on that either. So you literally have to like press every single line movement. So we can change our width. I'm assuming that's 1 pixel width all the way to 8. I'm not sure about that, but we can see it's definitely wider. And I have 1 horizontal and 1 vertical line up here at the moment. If you want to change a line to vertical or horizontal, you have to select it and do it individually as well. Changing the color is easy, but if you want to go back and cut these off, you actually have to remember which lines you cut on and go to those individually and select line show off on every single line. So the only thing I've adjusted on this microscope other than lines is the LCD brightness a little bit higher for the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into settings and go to default and just select OK to go to factory default settings. And I'm just going to remove my lines. And of course my brightness went to 50% and that's fine. The only change I've made. So the lines may be handy to have, but not the most user-friendly interface with them, just so you know that. I want to end the video looking at a coin, because even though this microscope is probably catered more to repair people, most people always ask in video comments, how does a coin look under the microscope, or does it do good with coins? Not something I really do, but we'll just show here a dime under the microscope. And of course we're going to have some movement on this stand, but it's minimal. It's not really bad at all, especially to be on my workbench. If we zoom in to the lower left here even further, on In God We Trust, we can definitely see some shake from our adapter and our boom arm, but that's still really good. And then the lower right, we see the date, the mint marking, the initials of the designer, John R. Sinnott, the backside. So I hope you found the review of this microscope helpful today. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to have a link down in the video description of this microscope, as well as some other tools I find very handy on my workbench. Any of those links you click on are affiliate links, and they help support the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. So thanks so much for watching, and God bless.